the cloud. And then let's go live on Facebook. I want to share in an event. Share on a page you manage.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, we want to go to Upper Midwest Bead Society. And then we
Make sure you have the right one. Oh no, this one goes to everybody.
Yeah, and so then it's trying hard.
Death spiral.
Come on. Yeah, it's just I clicked the go live on Facebook. It's opening Facebook and just sitting there. Yeah, I got it. Come on, let's go.
It's being pesky today.
It is. How's my internet? Let's reconnect to the internet again. Maybe that's the issue. There we go. Come on, let's go. I don't know why it's, whoops, admit. I cancel. I didn't mean to remove you. I was clicking away. Sorry.
Who'd you remove?
I don't know.
Oh,
I readmitted her. Okay, we're gonna try this again, folks. Sorry. Okay, so more. No, I want to go live. I am. No, I'm I think it was an internet undid us, but this is my good. There we go, live on Facebook. My other computer isn't even opening Zoom today. Let's make it that it's sorry. Okay. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Maybe Baggy, you could post a little thank you. We're working on it. It's spinning out better. Here we go. Basics live. With Cliff, Doris. And I can't spell my own name, sorry. Michelle. Type. Oh my gosh. There we go. There we go. Cross post to another page. Bobby Bead. There we go. Go live. All right. Let us know when you see us all. There we go. Happening now.
yep. Now we're live.
Yay!
Okay. Welcome, everybody. We finally got all our connections together. My name's Maggie Thompson, and I'm the current president of the Upper Midwest Bead Society, and you're on our free Beading Basics Saturday. And today we're going to have 3 different teachers. Cliff Swain Solomon, who will be doing something called the Indo-Chinese Box Stitch, which I've never heard of, so I think that'll be fascinating. And then Doris Coghill will be doing her Starlight Pendant, and it looks like that's going to be nice and sparkly with all the crystals in it. And Rochelle Peterson will do a daisy bracelet with a new version of the daisy chain. Is that correct?
It's actually a traditional version of the daisy
All right.
chain. It's just giving you new ways of like upscaling it.
Okay, cool. But first, I want to hand this over to Madison Holler, who is going to be our next speaker at our meeting on April 5th, Monday, April 5th. And that starts at 6 o'clock, 6:30.
6 o'clock to 7:30 on Monday night. And so Madison Holler is a local artist. She's owner and designer of Rubinski Works, located in central Minnesota. She specializes in beadwork and one-of-a-kind jewelry. Primarily works are created with glass and metal seed beads on thread. She practices metalsmithing techniques to construct the abstract precious metal components for her wearables. Madison work explores the bridge between traditional craft and modern jewelry making practices. Her collections provide commentary on traditions of her shared Anishinaabe and Scandinavian heritage, with an emphasis on folklore. Madison has a vocational background in photography and graphic design, as well as experience in fine art practices such as ceramics, printmaking, painting, and illustration. So, golly gee, I'm looking forward to Madison. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, like Michelle said, my name is Maddie. Hi, nice to meet you all. Maddie or Madison, either's fine. I am the sole artist behind Rubinski Works. I mix a lot of mediums with my work. It's not just beadwork. So I have been starting to make some metalsmith components in this last year. I was going to a studio in Minneapolis to learn metalsmithing pre-COVID. And upon the studio closing during COVID, I set up a solder station in my house so I could start making some, metal findings and components for the beadwork. And it kind of took me into a new realm of beading within a beaded structure frame. So I'm kind of just experimenting and having fun. Mostly I make jewelry, but I've started to make some wall hangings and art pieces as well. My talk, I'm mostly going to talk about that, the mixing of mediums, as well as how I've sort of structured my business, being a one-woman show and wearing different hats, my background in photography and graphic design, sort of aiding all of the facets of running a small business. I really want to hear from you guys what you'd like to hear, if any of that interests you. So if you can leave a chat question in the comments here on Zoom or the Facebook Live, or get a hold of me through my Instagram between now and the 5th, I'd love to talk about anything that you guys find interesting in that sort of general realm. So make sure to leave comments. I like it to be really interactive. I don't love monologuing, so I would like to have actual questions to answer, so I know it pertains to what you're interested in. Yeah. And I think Rochelle had a photo or two to pull up in case nobody had any time to look on the website. I'll let you know my website and Instagram sort of credentials too, so you can look it up. But here is a photo. These were some of the first designs I made with soldering some gold metal wire and then filling with beads. Mostly I use Toho Aiko, the 11/0 size, or my Yuki Delica. So I'm sort of working mostly in cylinders, but I have sort of veered off into rounds. They kind of work a little bit better with these metal frame shapes, but I'll go into really good detail on all that during the talk. This is just a little teaser to show you the kind of work I make. Yeah. Okay, and then just she wanted me to make sure I plugged my credentials. So it's Rubinski Works. It's RUBINSKIWORKS. And that's my Instagram handle and my website. So rubinskiworks.com or @rubinskiworks. I get asked a lot what the name stands for. And Rubinski was my nickname from my dad. It's kind of like a jokey nickname for me because I look really Polish compared to my Anishinaabe background. So it was a little joke, a little fun poking at me. So yeah, that's what that stands for.
Well,
I think that's
thank
all.
you
Yeah.
so much, Maddie. Oh my gosh, I'm so looking forward to Monday night.
Oh, good.
And she will be teaching a Saturday class sometime next fall. Since she's a professional photographer, it's wedding season, and so this is her class Saturday free until next fall. So she'll be super busy. So Monday night is when we've got her squeezed in. And that's April 5th for our meeting for the Bead Society. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maddie. All right. And so, and then Cliff today is going to be our first person. He's, like Maggie said. And so if you want to know what he's teaching, then he'll give you a little brief description here. And then Doris will give a brief description, and then I'll show you a brief description. And then we'll have Cliff take it away, and you'll all start beading. So why don't you start, Cliff?
Okay, sure thing. So hello, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Cliff Swain Solomon. And today I am going to be teaching for everyone this spiraling box stitch bracelet. The Indo-Chinese box stitch really never had a name. So I named, probably the reason Maggie hadn't heard about it is because I had to come up with a name because it was never named. Dates back to ancient India and China, and is really a variation on right angle weave meets netting with a little bit of emerald, but predates all of it by several thousand years. So we're going to be learning this bracelet today. It's a lot of fun. It's not the fastest stitch, but creates a beautiful effect. Okay.
Perfect. And then we got Doris.
And I'm going to be teaching, this is a fun project because you can use fire polish, Swarovski, round, bicones, just about any shape bead will work. This, switch to this camera, maybe Rochelle.
I sure will. Oh, there we go.
Okay, this is the one that was sent out with the directions. And this is a two-dimensional one. You can see that it's actually two stars that are connected together. You can make it a one-dimensional, and you can make it with small 3 and 4 millimeter to make earrings. You can make it a three-dimensional, so it has 3 layers, the center one, and then one on each. And you can make it with sparklies.
Wow, holy moly.
And this has got the background one is bicones and the front one is round. So you can combine the two. So we will have lots of fun.
Super sparkles. Wow. There you go. All right. And then I'll be teaching, like I said, a traditional version of the daisy chain. And if you want to make them in a flower pattern, you most certainly can by using floral colors and even a daisy color if you want. Otherwise, you can make nice, easy stripes. This pattern stacks them up two horizontal and 3 vertical, so you can make stripes really easy too. So rings or bracelets, and it's a really just a fun, quick pattern. So if you want to make a fun daisy ring, it works up in about an hour, and you can use size 11s or 8s. And so that'll be last that we'll be doing that for you. And so I really appreciate you hanging out with us. And so we will let Cliff then start us off with our Indo-Chinese box stitch. So everybody get your beads, get your pattern, bead along, okay?
Hello, everyone. So I wanted to begin by going over really the supplies behind this, and we will go from there. So 1 second here, I just need to switch over to my bead board here for you all. Here we go. And so what you're going to need today are 3 different size 11 beads. Optional to attach your clasp, you'll want size 15 beads, but you can just use your 11s instead if that's easier for you. You'll want a clasp. I just have the lobster clasp here, but you can use any clasp you like, and then you would want a jump ring for the other side. And then for either end, you're going to want any shape bead will do, around 8 to 10 millimeters. I have a nice rondelle here made out of aragonite. And then thread, you can use Fireline, you can use 1G, whatever thread you prefer. If you're somebody who likes to wax your thread, microcrystalline wax is what I prefer. And then a pair of bead nips. These are just a trimmer with a magnifying glass on them, or you can use a thread burner if you prefer. And this is the project that we are going to be doing. I'm going to bring that a little closer to the camera for everybody to see. So you can see here, it's a very lacy stitch. You can see the spaces between, as well as the spiral itself. And the spiral, you'll see, looks like right angle weave, except for the edges of the right angle weave are not connected to one another. There's space all around it. To do this stitch, we're going to start off with a threaded needle. And as far as size needle for the size beads that we're doing, I find that with size 11 beads, you can get away with a size 11 needle, works fine for this. And we're going to begin by identifying what we want to be the color of each spiral and what we want to use as the spacers. So for today, I'm going to start off with this kind of pink color bead for one of my spirals. My second spiral is going to be green, and what I'm calling the spacers are going to be purple. So to look at the original, we had kind of a salmon colored bead here, a purple bead, and then the gold bead are my spacers on the original. Okay. So to begin, you're going to want to thread up your needle, and you're going to pick up one size 11 for the first color of your spiral, 2 spacer beads, your second color, 2 spacer beads, and then we're going to repeat that pattern. So you guys can see what I have so far. We have one size 11 of the first color, 2 of the purple spacers, 1 of the second color, 2 spacers, and we're going to repeat that. The number of spacers you choose can change. I used 1 on the original colorway, but you could do 2 in between. And however many spacers that you choose to do for the overall pattern, you do 1 extra in the setup row. So the overall bracelet that we're going to do today is only going to have 1 spacer between, but again, you always start with a little extra. So I have, again here, 2 in between each. Okay, so color A, 2 bead spacers, color B, 2 bead spacers, A, 2 spacers, B, 2 spacers. I'm going to pass back through all of these beads. And I just realized I don't have my right beading glasses on. So let me switch that really quickly here so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. I can see the beads now. And so again, we're just going to pass back through all of these beads. You don't have to do it in one shot. There's a lot of them. You can change the number of spirals by, again, just if I wanted to, I could do a 5th unit with another bead and 2 spacers. Again, however many of these you do, or is how many beads will be spiraling. Once I get through, I go all the way around plus through the original bead. Okay. From here, I am going to do on 3 of these, I'm going to pick up 3 beads, do a right angle weave stitch, go through 2 spacers to the next one, do another right angle weave that's not connected to the first unit, and continue that for 3 out of the 4 beads. So I'm picking up 3 beads now, go back through the bead that I was on, plus 2 more. I'll bring that up to the camera so everyone can see. And when I pull that through, you'll see that makes a nice right angle weave loop. I've gone 2 spacers forward, plus through the next spiral color bead, your B color bead here. And we're going to pick up 3 of those. Go through that first bead again that we were coming out of. You'll see now we have 2 right angle weave stitches on here. And we're going to move forward 2 beads plus into the next color A bead for the spiral. So you can see the setup is relatively easy for this. Unlike right angle weave, we don't switch directions back and forth with each stitch. So it's very user-friendly, almost like cubic right angle weave in the fact that it doesn't switch directions. So you can see here, I've got my 3 going through the 3rd one, and then I'm going to stop here coming out of the 4th bead. And this is our setup. Okay. From here on out, I refer to each of these units of 4 rather than a right angle weave stitch. Traditionally, I would call it a box stitch. So we have 3 boxes here and 1 left without a box. The reason that we leave this one empty is from this bead, we are going to start the spiral. Now, like I said here, you choose from here how many beads you want to be a spacer, plus you have a box stitch, and the box stitches are going to end up between each of these stitches on every row, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Like I said, we're going to start off by picking up 1 spacer bead, and whatever bead I'm coming out of, that is the color bead that I'm going to do the box of. So I'm coming out of a green bead here, color B. I am going to pick up 4 total beads to create what I call my first box unit. Okay. So I slide all of that down closer to the project where I'm working, and I go back through just the first green bead. So I'm skipping that spacer. I've picked up 4 green beads, going back through the first one to create a loop. And as I pull that, you'll see that it sits just a little bit away from the project, and that's no problem. The big thing here is make sure that when you go through that first bead that you don't split your thread, or you won't be able to move your bead. So this is a very important thing to remember. The other thing is don't worry about your thread tension when you first make that unit. It's almost impossible to get it so everything's sitting tightly. Instead, what I do is I take the unit, I hold on to the 4 beads, I pull on my working thread away from it, and I slide it up against the project. And that will tighten it right into place. And I'll show you that again on the next one. After we make that unit, we pick up another spacer bead, and I am going to go through the outermost bead here of the next unit. When I pull that, you will see you have 1 spacer bead, your box unit, 1 spacer bead, and through the next bead sticking up. And let me show you that again, so that way I know that's a lot to take in all at once. So we're going to use 1 spacer bead, 4 of our color A, and the reason I'm choosing color A is since I'm coming out of a pink bead now, I want to pick up 4 pink beads. Again, you always pick up what you're heading out of. Since I'm exiting this pink one, 1 purple, 4 pink. And back through the first. Okay. And then again, pull it tight. So I'm holding onto those 4 beads and pulling tight, and it's right up against the project. 1 purple bead and into, I'm going to bring this up to the camera, that outermost bead of the next unit. Now, a couple of things as I am working here. A lot of times it will start to loosen up on the stitch before. One of the things that I found in bead weaving is never try to fully tighten the stitch that you're on. It just doesn't work. You always are trying to tighten up 1 or 2 beads back from where you're at. So when you're doing peyote, if you keep yanking on it, it doesn't make your stitch any tighter. It will make the stitch two stitches back tighter, but not the one you're on. You need a little bit of a few beads in between in order to create a little bit of traction, something for the string to grip onto. So what I'm going to do here is, once again, now that I have 2 stitches, I'm going to really be trying to tighten this green one. So I'm going to be pulling just on the thread while holding the 4 beads of the unit that I just did. I'm going to yank until I feel the one before the stitch I'm on start to tighten into place. And you'll see now, I'm going to bring that right up to the camera, how tightly it's sitting in there now. There's very little thread play on either side, but this one here, the pink one I just did, there's a little bit of movement on either side. And again, we'll get that with the next stitch we do. So 1 spacer. I'm heading out of a green bead right now. So I'm going to pick up 4 green beads. Pass through the first of the 4, creating a loop, a box unit, if you will. And as I pull it, you'll see it's a nice square, and yank and pull it into place. This project works fine with really any bead. The rounder the shape of the bead, the better it works, the smoother the transitions look. I'm using right now Toho beads, but Toho works fine, Mayuki works fine, and even Preciosa works fine for this as well. I'm going to pick up another spacer bead, and I'm going to go through the next uppermost bead. And now we're to the very last space where we started. As I do this next stitch, I'm going to come across the valley. I'm going to ignore that lower bead that's just sitting down there. I'm going to come across the valley. It will create a slightly larger space, but in the end, most people won't notice that. And once you've set this up, it will be smooth and all the spacing will be the same. It's just that initial setup row transitioning into the full spiral. I was headed out of a pink bead here, so I'm going to pick up 1 spacer plus 4 pink, back through the first of the 4.
1 B.
And pull that down into place. Again, holding on to all 4 beads and yanking. And one of the things I found for those of you who even struggle with doing right angle weave, they say that I can never get the tension. I always have to go back through a second time. If you hold on to the 4 beads when you're doing right angle weave and pull the thread in the direction that it's heading out of the bead, it will always tighten down nicely. And you shouldn't need to come back and do a second round. You can see that's holding a really nice square stitch there, a nice little right angle circle of beads. And then we go through the top of the next bead. When you do this, you'll see everything starting to come into a nice circle here of beads. Okay, so I'm going to do one more round for you all, and I'm going to just explain what I'm doing. But to point out the features here, you'll see there's one bead on either side of each box unit, as opposed to when I started, there were two in between, but that was really necessary. You'll notice as this grows, even with two beads in between each, it's slightly tapered compared to the rest of the unit, which is why you need two in between. And the reason for that, you'll see you have a spacer on either side plus the box unit. Here you only have the two beads between. So it starts off one bead narrower, which creates a nice taper for when you go to add your end bead here, which we'll do in a little bit. Okay, so that said, let me do another unit here. I have one spacer bead. I'm coming out of a green bead, so I pick up 4 green. As far as sizes of beads here, I'm using all 11s. I could be using all 15s, all 8s. It really doesn't matter. I just chose 11 because it's a comfortable size for most people to work with. For those of you who have done any of my patterns, most people get very used to 15s doing most of my patterns. Okay, again, as I pull here, I'm not tightening as much on this one, but the one before, and you still hold on to that previous unit that I just made to make sure everything tightens down. Just repeating myself because we learn through repetition. Okay, and here we go again. I'm coming out of a pink, so I pick up
1.
4 of the pink. This isn't a fast stitch to do. For anybody who wants to just crank out a quick rope, it's not going to come together as quick as perhaps doing like a chenille stitch or a regular right angle weave or even hubble. It's a little bit slower because of how you need to tighten this down as you work. So don't say to yourself, oh, I'm such a slow beater because this is taking forever. I will say when I'm building a rope like this, I know that if I'm doing a full necklace, it's probably going to take me, a couple sittings to do it, however long my body's holding out for that day. So again, just be patient with yourself and don't say, oh, I'm so slow. Beading is never a speed sport, is it? Beading is something we do that's meditative. It's for our enjoyment. So why do we need to rush our enjoyment? Just enjoy what you're doing and kind of savor each moment, savor each bead, and let it be a meditative process. So again, remember, the stitches don't necessarily have to be right next to the unit. We'll slide them right up to our piece, and our tension will go right back. The other thing that I find as I'm working is sometimes these units here that I have sitting out perfectly, sometimes they'll fall into the middle. So you will have to help them out. So if it's laying inside of your piece like this, you'll need to move it out. But you'll start to see here, we're starting to see the spiral happening. Each stitch for the next row sits in between the stitches of the previous row. I want to go for at least one more row here, and then I will go over how you attach a clasp and how you finish this as well. So I'll start with how you finish an end, and then we'll go into how you do a clasp. And before I switch sections, I of course will pause to see if anybody has any questions. So again, we're coming out of a pink bead. I picked up 4 pink. Again, don't worry about the stitches sitting next to each other. And if you'll notice here, I did this kind of on purpose. The 4 beads aren't really sitting in a good circle. You can kind of coax them into place with your fingers, and then when you pull, they will sit in that nice square shape that we're aiming for here. There you go. Get that right up for you all to see. Okay, I'm going to do 3 more of these, and then I'll stop for questions. Okay, I'm coming out of a green one. Pick up
I
a
need a
purple.
remedial beading class.
For green. What I like about this stitch is, well, right angle weave has a lot of space around it. You can see the space around the beads. This has even more and allows you to truly appreciate each unit and each section of beads for what they are. I'll do 2 more of these, give you a tour of the rope that we've made, and then talk about the other rope now that you're seeing it in action. Tension for this, about a medium tension. You really don't have to yank hard, but you just want everything sitting close to one another. Your rope will be a little squishy too. Don't worry about it if it has squish. Even though mine's looking really round, it will have some squish. If that bothers you, you can stuff it with some ball bearings or marbles in the middle of it. Do not overstuff it. You want there to be a little bit of breath between each marble, so that way it can bend and fit around your wrist. If you put too many marbles in, then it doesn't have any bend to it because they keep it taut and sticking out. Okay, I'm coming out of a green bead, picking up 4 green again for my next box after my spacer. The biggest thing I see people forget is to do the spacer on either side of your box stitch. The other mistake I see people make is they forget that it's the bead, whatever color I just came out of. So I just came out of a green. I'm making another green box that way. That's the other mistake that I see people make, is they'll grab the wrong color. If you do that, it will actually start to reverse the direction of it. However, because we're spiraling in an upward fashion and it's spiraling backwards, it's not going to be rising at the same rate and will actually look a little cockeyed. So to reverse directions, I actually go over how to reverse directions, and even do this as a non-spiral, but as different tiers in my butterfly class that I teach. So we kind of expand upon the different uses, and we even go over how to sculpt with this stitch, creating different widths and letting it grow and shrink to do 3D work. So you can see here now, we have a nice spiral started. I can squish it really flat. So again, don't worry about that. It will pop right back out with just a little bit of coaxing. Okay, I'll show you the original piece now, and you'll see it does squish. But the second you bend it, it really just goes back into shape. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here for a moment and see if there's any questions before I talk about the next steps with this. Are there any questions, Rochelle?
Well, actually, I have a funny question because I started this last night reading, just by reading your directions. And of course, starting any project after a long day is not always recommended. But the interesting part is that I misread the directions, and for each box, I used the lower bead that you were connecting to as like the floor of my new box. So I only added 3 beads instead of 4 on each one, and it came out really, really tight and really cool looking. But then I looked at Doris's this morning that she started, and it was like completely different. And obviously I had done it wrong. And so but I didn't know if you'd ever done that in the past and seen what, or
I have. It
played
does
with it.
create a very tight, different feel. I'll put it it's a different stitch that you're creating.
Absolutely. It's similar
Congratulations.
yet
You have,
very different. And so yeah, you do have to add 4 complete ones each time.
yes. Congratulations on inventing a new stitch. Uh,
So
That's a
I
great
can
comment,
show
though.
it to
Thank
you
you.
guys if you want to see it. There you go. That's what it looks like if you only do 3 instead of 4. They line up like that, and it's way tighter. Yeah.
But it's beautiful too.
And so it is. And so I was shocked. But anyway, sorry.
No reason to apologize. That's wonderful. That's, we're joking right now, but honestly, that's how new stitches
Uh-huh.
get created. Somebody makes a mistake, and for me, I don't call them mistakes. I call it discovering how to do something differently. And I usually keep in my office what I call my sketch pad, which is a little fishbowl of all my mistakes. And a year later, I'm trying to make something, and I say, I remember when I was trying to do this other thing, and that shape that came out of it, and I'll dig through my sketchbook, so to speak, my fishbowl, find that little piece, and then use that as the basis for creating whatever else it is that I want to do. So like I said, you just created a stitch that you may be able to visit and use for another project. So
Cliff, hi,
Yeah.
it's Maggie here. I've been watching the Facebook posts, and Victoria Pezpalko, and I hope I pronounced her last name correctly. She wants to know what the diameter of your rope would be if you used size 15 seed beads.
absolutely. I have handy, let me grab it. This is my butterfly necklace. I'm going to switch back over to the bead mat here. So this is with 4 units of 15s going around next to the 11s. So I'd say it's about 50% as wide. The other thing that happens is when you're only using one spacer with those 15s, it almost feels like a different shape. They get a lot tighter together. In between each unit, you can almost feel the gaps and beads sitting over one another. Let me grab a little closer, and so you can really see that difference. Creates a very elegant piece. And this is, again, using just 4 units. You can increase that in a moment. After I show how to finish it off, I'll show you all how to do even more units. These are all 15s, but I have 6 ladders going around.
Oh, interesting.
And then
All right.
2 spacers here in between each to really allow each unit. You can see there's 2 black beads on either side of each box. And that gives it a little more breadth between each spiral, allows each one to stand on their own. Okay.
Okay, well, thanks, Cliff. I hope that answered your question, Victoria. I will go mute again until I find another question, and then I'll be back.
Sounds perfect.
Thanks, Cliff.
Okay, you're welcome. So let's go over now. I'm going to do one more row, just since now we've been talking for a bit. Sometimes you hear something, you go away from it, and then you come back and say, wait, what was I doing? So let's do just a couple more stitches for everybody, just so that way you have a refresher of what we were doing. And I'm going to start off with, I'm coming out of a pink bead. So the next unit I make is going to be pink. Pick up 1 spacer for pink. Come back through the first. That creates a unit again. There's a lot of space here between everything. So to get it to soldier up, hold on to that for those 4 beads, pull. That's tightening this stitch, but really the stitch before it a lot more. Go through your next sticky uppy bead. Have a spacer there. You can see that spacer on either side. I pull, and we'll do this one last time, and then I'm going to show you how to end this. It's funny, all the writings that I found around this stitch, so I'm exiting a green one, have another green unit with a spacer, but all the writings that I found around this stitch talked about how to start it, how to do the stitch, but none of them talked about how to end it. So I had to reverse engineer it and figure out what was I truly doing in the beginning so that I could step out of this and make it look symmetrical. So I'll show you what I was able to discover now, especially because this was never written down anywhere. So now I did write it into the instructions that I gave out. So anybody who is a member of the Upper Midwest Bead Society should have been able to get a copy of this emailed to them. For those on Facebook, once you join them, become a member, they'll send it out to you. But otherwise, you can just follow along with the video as well here and just kind of rewind it and revisit this after the lecture's over. Okay, so at this point, I'm deciding that I want to finish this piece off. So what do? I'm going to pick up one spacer bead, one of the color of the bead that I am exiting. So I'm exiting a pink, so I have one spacer, one pink, and then two spacers. Okay. So looking at that, one bead, one spacer, one color that I'm exiting, and then two spacers, and then go through the next sticky uppy bead, the next outermost bead, uppermost bead of the next stitch. Okay. I'll bring that up closer for everybody to see, because this is where it gets a little trickier. So I'm going to pull this out a little bit so you can see there. Coming out of the uppermost bead, it was pink, so I picked up a single bead, the same color, two, and into the next uppermost bead. Now I'm just going to pick up two beads and put it in between the remainder of the uppermost beads. So I'm coming out of a green, I'm just picking up two spacers going into the next uppermost bead. Two more spacers into the uppermost bead of the next unit. And you'll see here, we're starting to have two beads, two beads, two beads, these spacers in between each, just like we started. And now I need to close it. I'm going to pick up two more beads. I'm going to skip over the single bead that I first added and just go into the color bead that was the first color bead I added that matched the box that I was exiting. So again, to kind of make it a little easier for people to see, I initially started, I was exiting this uppermost box stitch here. Let me kind of turn that for you all to see. I had that one purple, one pink, two purple. I'm going to skip over the first purple I added and just into the pink, the one that was the color of my spirals. And when I pull this, you all see that it looks identical to how we started, with one pink, two spacers, one green, two spacers, one pink, two spacers, one green, two spacers, and I'm exiting out of the pink. I like to go around one more time just to make sure we maintain tension and to kind of seal it off. Okay. And again, if you had trouble seeing any of that, just feel free to, after this class, rewind the video or fast forward through it till you get to this moment, and then you can see it again. You will notice here that there's just a slightly larger hole than the other spaces where you do that first toggle up, but that is the same on the other end as well. You have the larger hole here versus the other. And in the big scheme of things, when you look here, unless you know what to look for, you really won't see there's that larger hole next to my index finger on this side. Okay. So how do we end this? There's a couple different ways. Well, it's more than a couple, but I'm going to show you the easiest one for me. The easiest way to do this is to pick up your end bead you can either pick up 5 of your size 11s or 8 of your size 15s. The reason I like to use 15s here is they just feel a little more delicate to me. So 8 of my 15s. Your clasp, and then 8 more 15s. And some clasps, the eyelet that you're going through is so big that it really doesn't matter. You could pick up all 16 of your 8s or 10 of your 10 of your 11s. But for this moment, I'm going to pick them up opposite. Go back into the hole of your accent bead. And then you're going to see here, the bead I'm coming out of, I'm going to go back through the opposite side of that bead, kind of looping that bead. Okay. And when I pull that, I'm going to bring it up. You'll see that the thread is kind of straddling that bead. It's making a loop around it. And I'm going to go 2 spacer beads forward and then into the next bead here. Now, the other thing that you could do here is if this is feeling like the space, this gap along here is just too big compared to here, you can pick up a single bead before you go through the upper bead here. So I'd pick up one of my 11s, go up through this bead. And what that does is the beads that you're stacking on top end up creating a little bit of a buffer. And I'll show you that in a moment here. So again, go through here, go back up through my rondelle, my accent bead. And now what's great about this is it automatically reinforces all the work you're doing here. You're going to go back through all of the 15s that you put on, the clasp, and back down. Okay, I've gone through all of them. Be very careful not to skip a bead here. The second you skip a bead, it's going to make this kink. It's not going to sit as pretty. Okay, from here, I started off with this green bead here, and I'm going to just go through the other side of it, plus through 2 more spacers and into the next color bead. When I pull, I'm going to pull tight enough that it's going to start to bring this over. And each time you do this, it's going to bring the bead more and more center. Don't pull so hard that there's not enough movement to allow this bead to kind of glide into place. So you'll see here, I have just it's a little thready, but not overly thready, just a little bit of breath. A way to resolve that thready breathiness is I'm coming out of a red one. I'm just going to take a green one real quickly here. So I picked up the green one before I go through this spacer, or this accent bead, I mean, and go through everything. And you'll see there, it hides the thread by doing that. You can see that little bead floating there, that little green one here. So that's another way to do this. And so when it's done, this will just create a little bit of a floating ledge and hide your string, okay? And you would do that on all of them. I'm just showing you in the middle of this, the other option. So that way for those who are having a hard time getting this all to sit. Now, what style bead do you put on the end? You could put a round pearl. If you have a nice check bead, one of the check beads, fire polish, a big fire polish you could put on the end. When I come back down here, this time because I have a spacer bead, I would actually go through the spacer bead and then still go through that opposite side to create the loop around here. Okay, let me bring that up. And let me get my pointer here. So you'll see that's that spacer bead right there, that little green one inside. And again, it hides the thread versus over here where it gets a little threadier. If I zoom in, you'll actually see a little bit of that thread sitting there. So again, it's just personal preference. It also does create a little bit of a gap. That bead will feel like it's floating a little bit above. You can see it creates just a nice little ledge, a little space there. So you have your choice. If you want to sit flush, like this one, you pull it down, but know that it will appear thready till you pull it, or you can do it with those little spacer beads. And then of course we do the very last space. I'm going to do this one normal. I'm only going to keep the spacer on the one. Go through all of your beads again. So these are going to have 4 thread paths going through them, which really makes sure that this isn't going to go anywhere. It's not going to break on you. I do recommend avoiding lampwork beads for these end caps because they will shred your thread. You can try to go inside with a file. Usually an emery board works great to get in there, or a rasp, like a rat tail type file. But again, I try to avoid it if possible. On this last one, it's kind of hard to get it in. So if you see here, this is so close now seated, it's really hard to get into the last bead. So what I do is as I'm poking through, I actually try to go into that hole of the net. Let me kind of bring that up. So you can see I'm not trying to aim for the green bead where I started this, which is right here. Instead, I'm going into the space right before it so that when I pull up, it goes right into place. Now, if you try to go right for it, you're never going to make it in if you've been keeping good tension. So you can see now when I go through here, you pull through and it's seated nice and snug on it. You can see the side that I did it without the spacer, how close it does, keeps it, and with the spacer, it almost makes it look like it's floating, but there's really no space there. You know, there's no thread showing. So you can do it either way. Okay, before I go on to the first and only variation I'm going to show today, does anybody have any questions?
We don't have any questions, but we do have a couple people comments. They love your term sticky uppy thing. And many of us have been saying that we love it and have confirmed to our kids that yes, it's a real technical term. Thanks, Nancy. And then Sue Swanson wanted to know, do you ever fill the center with fiber?
You can, you got to be careful because it can explode out in a non-controlled way, but you could use the lashing that you would use for like crochet or knitting. You could do some type of felting and pull the wool out and make almost like a fuzzy caterpillar. So really the sky's the limit. Whatever your creative mind chooses to create, you can do there.
Wonderful. And then we also, Marlene wants, you know, she loves the amount of attention you offer your students on all the tiny details of design. And so
Oh, thank you.
really,
Thank you. Yeah, I try to make it not just a class about, okay, you're learning box stitch. So you saw I was giving a little bit of a few tips here and there about other stitches as I was going too. So I try to always allow it to be more than just about the class you're in. So any other comments? Are we ready to see the variation? Okay, this will just be a moment. I'm going to switch over. I've switched bead boards here. Through the magic of television, we have a new setup. And you can see here, here's a couple of different variations. I can do this as a long rope with a tassel. This is the bottom of one of my butterflies. The other, I can even show you, the butterfly uses in the body of it the same stitch done, let's see it from the back is a little easier, without the spiral. So this is my butterfly necklace that that's one of my current classes. And these are the ropes for the butterflies. You can see we just have a nice accent bead dangling, so you can turn into like a lanyard or a bolo tie or something like that. Okay, how do we do it with 2 spacer beads and with this nice, you can see I have 6 different colors going. So I began the exact same way. Let me bring this up here for you all to see. I started off by picking up 1 pink bead, 3 black beads, because I'm going to be using 2 spacers between. So remember, we always do 1 more spacer in the first row than we do for the overall rope. So 1 pink bead, 3 spacers, 1 orange, 3 spacers, 1 yellow, 3 spacers, 1 green, 3 spacers, 1 blue, 3 spacers, 1 plum, 3 spacers, and back to pink. So it kind of just gradates all the way around. So how do we do this? Okay. So we're going to begin after we've done our setup row, exact same way that we did the first time. You picked up a bead, 3 spacers, etc. Pass back through all the beads and then do a round where you put a unit that matches, picking up 3 beads, going to around to the next one, 3 go around through the spacers to the next one. Do that all the way around except for skip the very last one. So again, if I'm doing 6 different colors, I'm going to do that on 5 of the colors, ending by exiting the 6th color, but I don't make a unit on it. Then this time, because I'm doing 2 spacers, I'm going to pick up 2 of my blacks. I'm exiting from a pink. So this works identically to the other one. I'm going to pick up 4 pink. These are all 15s, or this would be very large on me. So you can see 2 black, 4 pink back through the first pink of the 4, making a box. And these are size 15 beads, so they're a little hard to get them to show up, but you'll see. And again, I just pull it down. Remember, don't split your thread or you can't tighten it. It won't be able to go down. Pick up 2 black. Go into your next sticky uppy bead. This one's orange, so I pick up 2 black, 4 orange, and 2 black again. This time I'm coming out of a yellow. So I would do the same thing, picking up 2 black, 4 yellow. Unlike, the very first one that I demoed, it just alternated back and forth. Instead, this time we're just going from color to color, and you can do as many of these box units in a spiral as you'd like. You could have 10 of these, I could have 20 of them. When it starts to get this big, it will have a lot more squish. The squish won't naturally rebound. I kind of like that. It creates a nice, almost oval shaped bracelet when you wear it. But if that bothers you, again, you can stuff this with marbles, ball bearings. Just again, leave on something like this, I'd probably leave about a unit's width between each ball bearing. So that way it will have a little bit of bend when you go to put it on the wrist. Okay. And you end this the exact same way. In this case, instead of putting 2 beads in between each one, I would put 3 beads in between each. So you pick up 2 beads, then your single, color bead 3, then 3, then 3, and then cinch it up that way. Okay, so that for everybody is Indo-Chinese spiraling box stitch. And that is all I have, unless there are some questions for me.
There is a question. What are your favorite 3-color combos?
I tend to like very strong colors. Um, I love to work when I'm choosing my colors. It depends on the mood. It depends on what I'm trying to create. So if I'm wanting something vivid, my go-to is usually black, white, and hot pink. If I'm doing something that's going to be a little softer, I'll tend to go towards more of like a mauve, more of a like a mauve and a plum, something like that. If I'm doing it for me, it would probably be a chartreuse, dusty rose pink, and usually like a palladium type bead or an argentium or something like that in there.
You muted yourself, Cliff.
I mute. Can you not hear me?
Okay, now you're back. You
Okay. I think it was an
accidentally.
internet stability issue.
Oh,
So
okay.
what I said was, the last thing I said was, if it was for me, I'd probably do a chartreuse, maybe a kind of a purpley plum, and like an argentium or palladium or something like that as a spacer.
Super nice. People are really impressed with your butterfly as well.
No, thank you.
They're looking forward to trying it again and, sitting down and rewatching and concentrating because they're excited to try out that new variation.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I will be teaching the butterfly for, I believe the next spot is at Social Media in July.
You'll give us our post, or you'll post that in the comments or something so that our people could see, and maybe join your butterfly class.
Absolutely. So yeah, that will be the next offering of it though. So any other questions before I hand it over to Doris?
There's just one more comment about that your creations are very unique and your orchids are really gorgeous, and they hope to take your orchid class soon.
I'll grab an orchid. Let me see if I have one handy. I do. For those who don't know what this orchid is, it uses 14 different stitches. And to make it, I actually patterned it pulling apart a real orchid. And here, let me zoom into it for you all. There it comes. So here's the orchid piece that people were talking about here. So there's 14 different stitches in it. The class teaches you how to make this as a pendant or as an earrings. Pair of earrings, it's about 2.5 inches wide, so it's quite a statement piece. You can see there. Again, there's 14 different stitches in this.
Super beautiful.
Thank
And we
you.
have another comment of another person who loves chartreuse, the other neutral.
Absolutely.
And
I'm excited that this year's Toho Challenge has a chartreuse bead in it.
it is. I don't know if anybody can see right behind me, there's a mannequin bust that has a design on it, and that is Jean O'Donnell's finished 2021 Toho Challenge. And you can see the green kind of really peek out from here. And so we're going to photograph it, and so then you'll be seeing, the pictures on Facebook soon. We've got designers finishing their challenges. So
Wonderful.
chartreuse. So thanks so much.
Thank
Clips
you. Thank you so much.
challenge will be coming up soon too, and so look for that on the airwaves too.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
being with me.
you. See you next time. All
See you
right.
next time. Bye.
Okay, so then we've got Doris here. And so we've got, oops, wrong camera, I apologize. We'll put it on her face first so she can introduce herself here.
Hello, and I'm going to take my mask off for teaching. First thing you want to do is thread a needle with about 2 wingspans worth of thread. We're going to use it doubled. So you will tie a knot and burn off the end. And this works with just about any size beads. When I wrote the original pattern, it was 3 and 4 millimeter Swarovski bicones. And the second smaller star attaches better to the larger star if there's only 1 millimeter difference. However, I have adapted it because if you want to do something bigger, it's hard to find those odd size round beads. And so there is an adaptation you can use to still get it to connect. You can see the connection a little bit more, but it still works just fine. Like for example, this one here is 4 and 5 millimeter fire polish. And so the connection is just 1 bead in here. This one is 6 and 4 millimeter fire polish. And the connection is 2 beads wide. And so there is an adaptation. You can use any beads you have, stone, crystal, plastic, anything will work.
So I'll switch videos or cameras.
Yep. So we'll start with the larger star. In this case, and so you will pick up 12 of what you want your larger star and move them down to your knot. Pass your needle through the knot, through the 2 strands of thread, and pull it tight. And then you're going to pass back through the first bead. And you try not to pull the knot into the bead, or you may have trouble getting the needle through it later on. But so now you have a circle of beads. You're going to pick up 2 fire polish and a size 11 seed bead. And then go back, skip the seed bead and go back through the top. Let's see, where can I put this so it's easier to see? So you'll go back through, I guess I shouldn't have used clear beads. Or maybe I can do it as a,
Would you rather have those colors?
let me move this there. That's probably easier to see.
Oh, there
Okay.
you go.
Okay, then you're going to pick up another fire polish, and this section is coming out of this side of the bead, so you want to go through that same fire polish in the circle. And then through 2 more. So it will look like that. And you will continue to do that all the way around the circle so that your finished one will look like this. And on your very last one, instead of picking up 1 seed bead, you pick up as many as you want for the loop. So I'm going to continue here. This is actually a very fast project. It doesn't take long at all. To get this done. And the pattern calls for using both size 11 and size 15 seed beads on the smaller star. Size 11 on the large star and size 15 on the smaller star. If you're using 3 and 4 millimeter fire polish, then that works. However, if you're using, like I'm using 4 and 6 on this one, you can just use all size 11s. As you can see, it's very fast. It doesn't take long at all. Oops. Now, if you, as I said, it will work for any kind of beads. If you decide that your fire polish or whatever bead you're using is too plain looking, then put a seed bead between each fire polish to give it a little bit more color. So it's very versatile. You can do a lot of just simple changes that really changes the look. Now, this is my last point. So if this was the large star, I would be putting a loop of seed beads here. In this case, this is going to be my small star, so I'm not going to do that. And not to confuse you, but I'm going to switch to a different color. Once you have all of the points on, I'm going to go back to the light, all of the points on, you need to put something in this center. Now, it depends on what you're going to do with this. If you're going to make it just a single star and just hang it that way, the way the pattern is written will look like this, so that you have just a center of the exact same beads. You can switch that up a little and make it different colors, or you can put a larger bead in the center there. So it depends on how you want it to look on the end. In this case, we will do the same beads in the center. So you pick up 3 of the same size fire polish. And you're going to skip 3 beads and go back in. Now, so I would go into this one here in this, the 4th bead in the circle. Now, if you find that, oh, and one thing I forgot to mention is match the color of your thread to the color of your beads, because the thread is going to show. If you do not want the thread to show, then you can do the seed bead between each of the beads. This large Swarovski one I did, oh, and you can't see the seed beads.
A little bit.
A little bit. They didn't fit together, you can see. Every bead has a seed bead in between it because they didn't want to fit together.
They wouldn't play nice
They
together.
wouldn't play nice together. So every bead has a seed bead in between it. So there is a lot of different things you can do to make it a little different, or to work out what you think you might not like about it. So you go through the 4th, 5th, and 6th bead in the ring. Then you will pick up another fire polish and go through this middle bead. And again, sometimes the fire polish don't like to play nice with each other. So as you can see on here, I put extra seed beads in there to make it fit better. And there you have the large star completed. Now, when I pulled that tight, as you can see, it kind of pulls it out around. Can you see that? It's not quite round anymore. So I will take that apart and put a seed bead here, 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 and here. And that will give that just enough of extra width to make that round again. So if it doesn't work, just add a few more seed beads. Now, this first crystal one I did is actually going to be the small star for this blue one. And so you need to put something in here, and normally I put a larger round bead, and that again can be a pearl, a glass pearl. You know what? I didn't bring anything big to put in there. We'll just put one of those in there. No, that's not going to look right. Okay, now we'll just, we will just, we'll leave it blank for now because you can always add it later. What I want to show you, so after you've finished the large star, you do the exact same thing with the smaller size beads for the small star, and you put something big in the center. Like in this case, it's a larger fire polish in the center there. It can be any size bead you want.
I don't know, one of those will work.
Oh yeah, one of those will work. Oh, here, Rochelle donated a great big white one. We'll stick a great big white one in there. And just pick up one or two seed beads. We'll have to see how it fits. And the same thing here. If when you string that across, it pulls the circle out of round, then I'm going to need 2 seed beads on each side. There you go. Okay, I think I forgot to tell you, when you finish the large star, you'll want to tie and fasten off your thread because you will not need that thread again. However, you make the thread for your smaller star a little bit longer because that's the thread you're going to use to attach it to the large star. And once you get that centerpiece in there, I tie a knot so that it doesn't move. Okay, the blue star is going to be our background, and the clear white star is going to be our small one. Now, the next thing you have to decide is if you want it to sit on there offset like that, or set so that it matches. And that choice is totally up to you. It'll work either way. So the first thing we're going to do is pick up one fire polish and then line it up depending on if you want it the same way or offset, and go through the corresponding fire polish. I don't know if you can see that in the large star. And of course, my thread is tangled.
What's the trick for not tangling double threads so much?
You just get used to working with it.
Oh, okay. I'll have to practice.
So, and you just go through one in the large star, pick up another fire polish the same color as the small star, and then go through, skip one in the circle of the small star and go through the next one. So you have, see, we have two connecting there, and you just keep doing that all the way around. Now, as I was saying earlier, if you have, say, a 4 millimeter for the small star and a 6 millimeter for the large, then you're going to need 2 connecting beads, because it's small enough that it will not set there nice if you only use one. And you keep doing that all the way around. Now, you will notice that the stars as they are now are very floppy. If you've done any beading with any 3-dimensional type of work, you should be familiar with, originally it was called Future Floor Polish to stiffen them. Then it went to Pledge with Future Shine because they got bought out. And I think now if you go look at it for it at the grocery store, it still has Future on the label someplace, but I'm not actually sure what my bottle is probably 20 years old because it lasts that long. And you can see the ridge of connecting that I'm doing in here. Okay, one more. Oh, 2 more. There. So there's our finished. See, that didn't, well, of course I had one of the small star done, but it didn't take long at all. You can do one of these in less than an hour. And there's the single row of connector beads. And as I said, this is very floppy. But once you stiffen them, you can hold this and it doesn't move.
So you just dunk it in the stuff, or what?
I use a piece of either wax paper or saran wrap and pour the wax into a little cup and use a Q-tip to dab it on there.
Oh,
And then tip it over and do the same thing on the back. You can dip it, but I think that's a little bit of overkill.
okay.
And I've never had it. You can see that the Swarovski sparkles just as much.
Yeah.
I've never had it change the color of anything. Although if it's maybe a galvanized or something, you might want to test it. Just test it with one bead before you do the whole thing. And now I think we can open it up for questions. Then you would just finish off this thread and you're done.
It says, what size is the big center bead?
That's
like a 12 millimeter pearl, I think.
Oh, I think
10?
it's more like a 16.
Oh, okay.
Whatever will fit in there. If you use a smaller one, just put more seed beads. Or can you see how I did this one? See, there's like 4 seed beads, and then the big bead, and then 4 seed beads, or 3 seed beads on the other side. So you can put anything in there. You could even put a button in there if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
Anything that will fit.
And so have you ever like done a cabochon or middle, like those rivolis?
You could do a beveled rivoli and put in there, yeah. I've never done that, but that's a good
Yeah.
idea. Uh-huh.
I
And
see
then-
Maxine is holding up Pledge Floor Care with Finish or something like that.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it. That
Thank
works.
you, Maxine.
And Judith has
Oh,
one
that-
too.
Yeah,
Oh,
Pledge
I
with
made
Future
it.
Shine.
Revive it.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So
Oh,
it's
alrighty.
it's several different, they've been bought out several times, so the labels have several different things, but they all work pretty much the same. It's basically a clear floor wax.
Interesting. And so, but instead of waxing your thread, like before
Right.
you do it,
Right.
you afterwards.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be able, even if you waxed it, it wouldn't be that stiff. It would still be a little floppy, because see, these just move.
Right.
And then once you put the stiffener on there, I usually, you might have to prop these up a hair and then turn it over, and it takes a full 24 hours to dry.
Mm.
It will get semi-stiff so that if it's not quite in alignment, you can move it around. And then you just have to leave it set for 24 hours to fully dry. But it hangs much better if it's stiffened.
I've also used clear acrylic.
Yeah. In a spray or a dip?
Dip.
Yeah.
And I've used it with a brush.
Yeah, that would work too.
But don't use a glue like Gia
No.
Typo cement.
No.
Just use, okay.
No.
That makes sense. I love this 3-dimensional
Mhm.
crazy one. And then you put a bead on both sides.
Yeah. So she's looking at this one
Sorry.
that has 3 layers.
And the question is, do you dab the stiffener, the acrylic on the beads as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because you can't, there's no way you could hit just the thread. And like I said, it doesn't hurt the beads.
You don't have to peel it off or nothing?
No.
It just,
Although when you do it, it will be slightly soggy. So leave it sit there for maybe a half an hour and then pick it up and turn it over and move it to a different spot so that it doesn't, like when I was doing the Swarovski one, that's the last one I did, a few of the beads stuck to the wax paper.
oh, okay.
So then I had to scrape off a little residue of wax paper.
Oh. And which side of the wax paper are you supposed to have up? The shiny or the dull? Does it matter?
Wax paper is the same on both sides, isn't it?
One side is shinier than the other.
Yeah, it doesn't,
I don't know.
yeah. I've never noticed, so I have to say I don't think it
Maybe I'm
matters.
just buying the generic brand, and so that's why.
You could, if you wanted to, do this same set of 5 beads on the inside here
Instead of the big one.
instead of the big one. And so, like I said, there's a lot of flexibility in what you can make it come out to
And
look
so
like.
why are mine so poking out like above? Did I not do enough little seed beads?
No, it's because they're too big.
Oh,
This one's
okay.
bigger.
Oh, I did have one extra there.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but it doesn't fit in the circle.
Oh, okay.
Can you see how hers is poking out just a little bit? Now, if this is just gonna be a single, or if this is gonna be your small one, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
And then, have your bigger one. So
Oh,
this
great.
is another option for the center of the small star.
And so. Cool.
And I have to say thanks to Rochelle for showing me how all this camera and stuff worked, because I've never done taught a Zoom class. So I don't know if that means you can expect great things from me in the future or not.
Well, that's part of why we're here is our Bead Society group. We're learning from each other how to do it.
Mhm.
And I think that it's a great platform in order for us to be together as a Bead Society.
Yeah.
And with just a couple easy cameras, you
Mhm,
know.
mhm. And I can't wait until we can all get back together again, because as you know, I buy estates to sell at shows, but I also am the contact for if anybody wants to donate an estate to the Bead Society. And I've had 2 donated that are being stored in my garage. And so there's lots of good shopping for the members to do.
Well, would you
Once it-
ever consider a Bead Society garage sale, doing it that way?
Well, and I was thinking about, but I just bought another estate and it was 2 truckloads again. And so I was thinking about having an open house. Some of it right now is on my website, beadsbyd.com. There's three or 4 estate sale pages if anybody wants to go shopping. But yeah, we could do that. We'll have to see if, you know, what we can work out to, because I know not everybody would come, but maybe some people might want to.
Well, it's a beautiful drive down to your place,
Mhm.
you know. So I think, I don't know, I guess it's a thought. We have a question, would parchment paper work too?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that would work. And but yeah, everybody likes them, especially the triple star with the beading on both
Mhm.
sides. And you know, but I like the fact you can use it with anything, fire polish or crystals
Mhm.
or
Or stone.
stones or
And I've even tried one size bigger than this one. It gets really bulky, but it's really pretty.
I was gonna say to hang and catch the sparkles in the
Yeah.
window. Yeah.
This is 6 1/8 millimeter. And so this is actually probably about as large as you really would want to go, because this is what, 3 inches across?
At least, yeah. And so, and you use size 11s in between each
Yeah,
one to
yeah.
hide the thread. that
Yeah,
you said,
to
yeah.
hide the thread. They didn't want to play nice together. Oh, I didn't put it on the ring, but on all these. And on the small one, I did put it on the ring.
And on the Pico, you did it
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And
So
so,
anything that works, you know, if you like it better with the seed beads between everything, then put the seed beads between everything. It's one of those patterns that basically I give you the basics and you can go with it and do what you want,
well,
because it pretty much works with anything.
no, we like those interchangeable patterns
Yeah.
because that way you can really just make it easy, man. Whatever's on your bead board that day, just
Keep
pick it up
going,
and
yep.
use it. Yeah. No, I think that's super duper. And so, well, golly gee, thanks
Okay,
so
so we're early,
much.
so we can get into Rochelle now.
A little bit, unless you have any more questions. There's a couple people that say thank you, Doris. They're gonna check out your website and definitely see what there. And I do have a couple names for you too.
Oh, okay.
A couple of our customers, one called and one came to visit us last week. And there.
Yeah, and the last one you gave me, I called her and she was a friend of, and they haven't contacted me again, so.
Okay. Because one of the women is legally blind, and
Mhm.
so she may have the friend helping her
Yeah.
too. So, but you know, it's hard if you can't bead anymore.
Yeah.
We're, you know, trying to find places, you know, since we're teaching all these
Mhm.
people stuff, we want the beads to go somewhere too.
Yeah.
And so,
And even the last estate I bought that, like I said, it was 2 truckloads. There's, out of that 2 truckloads, there's 2 boxes of books, a bin of storage bins,
Mhm.
a bin of free stuff and a bin of 50-cent stuff to go to the Bead Society.
There you go.
So it's like some of it goes to the Bead Society, whether I buy it to sell or not. So,
Right, yeah. So, and I've donated some to some of the teachers that have come
Mhm.
into Bobby Bead
Yeah.
here. And so they're getting their students back active.
Yeah.
And so we want to keep it going versus collecting dust.
Yep,
So,
and Jeff Plath at Taylor's Falls Speed Store works with some kids up on reservation. So
oh, nice.
some gave a couple bins to him too. So
That's perfect.
keep spreading those beads around.
Absolutely. Well, we will keep trying to do that and check it all out. And
Doris, I've got a question for you from Facebook.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. Alexandra Sidorenko, this is a really brilliant idea. Thank you, Doris.
You're welcome.
And I gave her, it's beadsbyd.com, right?
Correct.
Okay, so then Victoria wanted me to put your website on the Facebook chat. So just making sure I put the right website on, that would have been bad. And then Rochelle, there was an earlier comment for Cliff, and I couldn't catch him before he left. Gail Foster wants to know what would happen if you used a different size spacer bead. Where can I direct her to
Here,
ask?
I can show you.
well, here, let's click on our close-up camera because Doris actually did that on hers. This
Okay.
camera right here.
This is the one with all, there we go. This is the one with all size 11s. And this is what it looks like if you use 15s in the,
As the spacer bead.
As the
So
spacer
the
bead.
Goldie bead, hold it up. There you go. The
There.
Goldie bead is the spacer bead. So you can see how it
Yeah.
tapered down the moment she switched the spacer
yeah. So
to
this
the
is
15.
the gold bead here are 15s as a spacer bead. So it reduces the width of the spiral by about 20%.
Yeah, and the laciness is cut down probably by
Yeah.
50%
Yeah.
almost. So especially if you use it, she downsized from an 11 to a 15, you could also go maybe to a demi. We were talking
Mhm.
about, but it really makes it a delicate nuance to change that spacer bead size.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully Gail is still, or Victoria is still watching. No,
Yeah.
Gail.
This is
Sorry, Gail
the all
Foster has
11s,
that.
and this has got the 15 spacer bead.
Yeah, we're hoping that
All
other
right.
people are beading along too. And so if you've got pictures of what you've been beading while you're beading with us, please post pictures of your what you made in the comment section. That way everybody can see what you did. And if you have any tricks of, well, this is how I did it. Like me, when I use 3 beads in my cliff pattern instead of 4. It's just, change one bead and try it out, see what happens. I think it's really fun. Just like trying out different centers or different layers gives each one of your stars a whole new dimension. And so, no, everybody keeps saying thanks, stars. Everybody loves your stuff. And so we're very excited that you could come down to our Bobby Bead studio, and we will be, if anybody else wanted to join us for our beading live, but you don't have a setup at your house to do that, and you're locally in Minneapolis area, we can, but you want to teach, you can join us in our Bobby Bead fun little studio we have set up here in our wholesale showroom. Which our wholesale showroom is open to shop 1 day a week on Sundays from 11 to 5. You can come on in and join us. Or you can do curbside pickups Monday through Saturday from noon to 4. You can call us or place an order online. And so then I'm just gonna switch Dee's camera over to me here. And so what we're gonna do today is we're making daisy chains, good old fashioned daisy chains. And if you want to make them into necklaces, they work really great as necklaces. Just a fun, easy choker. Or if you want to make rings, they make really, really, really fun rings. And so what we're going to do today is teach you the stitch, and you can do anything you want with it as well. It's loads and loads of fun. And so we are going to make our traditional daisy chain, which has a flower, 6 flower petal beads, a center bead, and then it'll have 3 leaf beads in between each flower. And so it's a traditional stitch or way of doing the stitch. And it's a zigzag pattern actually. These is made of size 8/0 toe rounds, but you can use 11/0 rounds, 15/0 rounds, 6/0 rounds, anything you want. I was just trying to make the bracelet work up a little faster. So that's why I was using 8/0 rounds. The rings I was using with size 11/0s, and they are fun little rings. It's actually a very sturdy ring pattern because of how it's done. And so it's really nice to make. An 8 might make an okay ring too, but it's a little big. So that's why they make great bracelets and chokers. And here's another ring that I made. So the daisy is the 6, there's 2 petal beads on the left, and then 1 petal bead on the top and the bottom of the center, and then 2 petal beads on the right. And it's the same stitch. I just made stripes in between my daisies, so I have more leaves going on here. But we're going to show you the basic way of doing it. So what you'll need to make a bracelet is actually about 6 feet of thread to make a 6 to 8 inch bracelet. And we are going to use 4 feet and then leave a 2-foot tail after the other side of our stopper bead so that we can use that tail to then finish off our whole project. So you should tie a stopper bead onto 4 feet of thread. I usually just work straight off of my bobbin. That way, depending on how much thread you really do need for that tail, you'll have it. So just pick up a bead that's a completely different color than what you're using. So that way you'll know it's a stopper bead. And you'll slide it all the way down and just wrap your thread around that bead one more time. And now this is going to stop your other beads from moving, and you'll be able to control your tension, but then you can remove this bead in order to use your tail to connect to your clasp and finish the other side. So how this works is for the very first step, you're going to create the first flower right there. And so that's what we're going to create first. So since we have 1 center bead here that's gold, and then we're using white flower petal beads. So these are petal beads, and this is the flower center, and then these we'll call a leaf bead. So that way you know what we're doing. So for the very first petal, after you've got your stop bead on your thread, pick up 4 petal beads and then the center of your flower. So that will be 4 white in my case, and then 1 gold, because that's my center. And then slide them all the way down near to your stop bead, and then turn around, and you're going to pass through the very first bead you added, and you're going to go the opposite direction. So pretty much it's almost, we're not circling the whole thing. You're just going to turn around and go the other direction. So just pass through the very first one, heading towards your stop bead. And then all your 4 beads will nestle right up together. So your center of your flower will tuck right underneath that top bead. And you want to orient them so that your tail, your stop bead is on the left, and then your working thread is on the right. And it's coming out of the top. So you've got your top of the flower petal, and there's that. So now you're going to add 2 more flower petal beads. You're going to jump the center and go through the lower petal. So I'm using a completely wrong color of thread here. I'm using a green thread through my white beads, but I just want you to be able to see my thread and where it's coming out, because you can't always see white thread on the camera. And so normally I would match my thread color to my beads, because that's a Ceylon pearl white bead. So I would normally use a white thread. But I just wanted you to be able to see my thread on camera. So that's why we're doing that. So now you need to reorient your beads. So your tail thread, once again, is on the bottom left-hand side, and your working thread is coming out of the top right-hand side. And you see how those beads stacked up? So there's 2 beads right there on the right. So that is your top right-hand side. So I'm going to just protect my thread tension and wrap it around my finger there. And so now we're going to add our leaf. And so this is a little mantra that makes it easy. You're going to add 3 beads. So you'll add 1 leaf color, 1 petal, 1 leaf, and then you're just going to pass down through the lower petal right below where you came out of. So you came out of the top, and those 3 beads, you pull them taut, should just stack up like that, so that the petal bead sticks up a little bit. So hold it taut, and the thread I usually control with these fingers right here. So now we're just going to add 1 leaf and 1 petal, and then pass through the petal leaf bead that's sticking out there. And if you pull it taut, you will see how the 3 leaf beads just stack up sideways, and then the 2 new petal beads are horizontal just to the right. And if this tension comes loose, just slide your stopper bead right up there, and now it's right back into place. So now we are going to repeat the petal. So it's the same number of beads we're going to add each time, just like we did. So for the first petal, you only do that once as you start. After that, you're going to repeat the same stitch. So we're creating a flower. So you will have 2 flower petals, and then the flower center. Now go down through the lower flower petal bead. And if you only added 2 beads instead of 3, it ain't gonna work. You have to be able to count right. So don't worry about it. Just back up, take off the wrong bead, put the right bead on, 2 flower petal beads, and 1 center flower petal bead. So reorient your beadwork. Since you dropped it down on your table, your tail thread is always on the left, and your working thread is always coming out of the top right. And so this is a one directional stitch. It goes to the right. So that way your beads will always be right here on the right, and then pass down through the second petal bead. And so those 3 stick there. So now you've got, once again, your 4 petal beads, your 4 center. We're only missing 2 petals. So add 2 petal beads, jump the center, and go through the upper petal. And we are repeating over and over again. So the thread is coming out of the top right. You add a leaf, and then you add a petal and a leaf, pass down through the lower petal, add a leaf, and then a petal, and pass through the petal you just added in the previous step. And so now it just lines up like that. So this is a zigzag stitch, up, down, but it creates a circular pattern, or it looks like it's a circular pattern just by the colors that we've done. So now we want to finish the flower. So you had 2 petals and 1 center, and pull it taut, go through the lower petal, and then 2 more petals, jump the center, and come down. So with each new step, it's the same thing. Add 3 beads and then pass down through the lower bead, and then add 2 beads and pass up through the upper bead. And so it's pretty darn quick and easy and repetitive. And so leaf bead, petal bead, leaf bead, pass down. And so keeping the tension pretty reasonable and controlled will just help you to maintain throughout the whole thing. And then when you pull it taut, you're going to be pulling it backwards towards your tail thread because it's a circular thing. And so each time you'll have to retighten your little circle, because this here is also a circle of 6 beads. It's just that 2 of them are petals and 3 leaves and 2 petals. And so it'll always be a little loose while you're creating it. And then when you tighten it up at the very end, when you finish. And so we will just continue on our add 2 petals and pass through. It's pretty darn fun, huh? I think it's pretty quick and easy when you think about it. So we got leaf, petal, leaf, pass down through the lower petal. And then petal, leaf, petal. And so it just works up really fun and quick. And if you want to create different colors in your flowers, you can certainly do that. I would just change after my next leaf. So we'll finish this flower. And so I've got 2 flower petals. So I added 2 more and then a center. And then I add 2 more because there's always 6 petals. And then the center. So we'll add the leaf, and now we're going to change colors of our flower. So remember, it's leaf, petal, leaf, and then you'll pass down through the lower petal. And so leaf, petal. So now we've started our new flower, which is now orange. Orange, you're happy to see me. And so if you didn't want to do a flower, then you could make stripes if you wanted to. Remember how we had our 6 beads? So if you don't like daisies, just do stripes. It's the same absolute identical pattern. We just pick up a different color bead instead of thinking of it as that. So see, I have a green stripe and I have an orange stripe. And so if now all I want to do is make another green stripe, you're just going to repeat steps 2 and 3 again. So you're going to add your leaf, your petal, your leaf, go down through the second bead. Whoops, clear your playing field row. Oh, I'm sorry, Doris left. I can take off my mask. I wasn't even thinking. So now all we have to do is add our leaf and our petal, pass up through the petal bead, and see now we've created stripes. So instead of thinking of it as a flower, think of it as a deconstructed flower. So a leaf, a petal, and a leaf. And then you go down through. And so when you're talking to yourself about leaf, petal, leaf, that means it's a different row.
And so since we're doing kind of a stripe, so a leaf and a petal. And calling it a leaf and a petal just helps you to keep it track straight of what it is. So this way, when we pull it tight, now we have stripes going on here. So you don't have to keep it in a floral pattern. You can just change it up if you want to. If you want to make them all solid and have a solid band, then same goes. You want to then pick up just 3 beads, pass down through the lower bead, pick up 2 beads, pass up through the center of your sticky uppy. So now we have 6 beads plus the center all in the same. And so it's technically a solid orange flower in the middle of our green, just because of the way the pattern has laid out. And so we'll do our leaf bead, our flower bead, and our leaf bead. And then pass down through the lower bead, a leaf bead, a flower bead, pass up. And so now we're back again to a stripe. So you can pretty much create your pattern any way you want, with alternating how you're doing it. But the mantra of saying the same thing over of leaf bead and petal bead and leaf bead helps you to keep your colors straight. And so if you wanted to create and just change anything, you could. And so the center bead of your flower is now green. It goes along with your whole thing. And so you can just change it however you want. So remember when we did the very first daisy, we did 4 petal beads and then 1 center bead. So if you want to find the center bead color, it's always the 5th bead in your pattern, just like you did it at the beginning. And so 1, 2 orange beads here. We picked up 2 orange beads here. That equals 4. So the 5th bead is going to be your center bead. So then 1, 2, 3, and change that color. And 2, jump the center. And now you're technically looks like you're doing flower, flower, flower. So it is a pattern that you can change up any way you want to, just by changing the colors of the beads. But it's always the same stitch. After you start the first flower, you're going to add 3 beads. So the first 2 beads would be a flower petal, and then the third one would be a center of your flower. And so then pick up 2 more flower petals, jump the center, and to go into the second bead. And so now we've got a couple flower petals, petal, petal, petals. So it's pretty darn easy to just continue all the way down as long as you want and make anything. This is a choker, and if you count the rows of the 3 beads, then that's how I just had the same how long is it. And so if you look at those 3 beads in the middle, do you see how they're sideways? And then the 2 here are vertical. So that's how they stack up when you do the zigzag stitch. It lays them out perfectly to that orientation versus doing a circle and cutting through and a circle and cutting through. Doing it in the zigzag makes it stronger and consistent. And so if you want to then finish, what I would do is just add a little clasp on the end is what I did here. I sewed in, these are the beadable magnet clasps, and all I did is sew it in as I went around and around the circle on the end here these fun little bracelets that I did here. I use these new beadable endings by the Symbols endings. And so this is a 2-to-1 connector. And so I just made a reverse brace one here. So one I did brown with a blue center of the flower, and the other one I did blue with the brown center of the flower. And after I did my flower, I just went and passed through. And so these are little beadable endings. So they're about the size of an 11-0 round, and they just sew right through. So then I just connected to my jump rings, and on this side, I have a little lobster clasp, and that way it works pretty darn good. This one I did with little 11-0s, so really teeny tiny 11-0s. And then all I did is change the color of the flower, and the green leaf is the same in each one, but this one is pink, and this one is a dark green, and this one is a lavender. And then I added it to a slide clasp so that it will connect that way. And I changed colors in the middle of my pattern here. These are all the Toho Challenge colors, if anybody recognizes them. And so it's the same pattern. All I did is change colors of the flower bead, and the leaf bead is identical. So it created a little bit of a, so this is a 3-strand bracelet that I made out of the little 11-0s. Otherwise, like I said, you could make the fun stripes, and all I did is reverse the pattern on the stripe. I did the petal beads on the top one in the turquoise, and the leaf beads in the bronze, and then the leaf beads in the turquoise, and the bronze as the petal. And it looks completely different just by changing the orientation of which bead goes where, but it made another fun little 2-strand bracelet. So I used another one of these components to make that and connect it together. And all I did is bead it right in there, and it's super fun. And so if you want to make a ring, the rings are really fun and easy. And so by connecting, I'm going to show you how to connect a ring with a bracelet, even because it's bigger and it's easier to see. And so I made this fun one. This is the same blue. And when it's the size you want for your ring, and you need to have one more connection, because you can't just connect. We want to actually connect it by creating the leaf in between. And so on each end, you started and stopped. In order to create your tension, what I'm going to do is just bead right around the end in a circular path, just to make my very last flower a tighter tension, so that you can actually, the beads won't slide around on you. And so on the end here, I took off my stop bead, and I need to do that one little circle on the end here as well before I connect it. So this is a ring that we're pretending to connect here, okay? It's just the 11-0s are so small. So we just took off our stop bead, which was right here, and this is my tail thread. I just put my needle on my tail thread, and I'm going to run around the whole 6 beads on that first one again, just to tighten it up so that my tension will work for me. And if you want to tighten up the beads below it, you can do that just by pinching and pulling, like I said, pulling a little bit backwards. So each one of your loops of your daisy chain are connected to the one before it. So if you maintain tension through the whole thing, then it'll be easier. So I wrap the ring around my finger, and I've got my both daisies here. So daisy on one side, daisy on the other side. And what we want to do, see, there's the 2 horizontal beads and the 2 horizontal beads. We not want to go through the vertical, guys. We want to keep those out of the way, just the horizontal. So the leaf beads, remember, are the ones that were horizontal. So you're going to pick up 1 leaf bead. Okay, that's my other thread. This is my tail thread. And then you are going to pass, we're on the end here. And then I loop, here we go, my other side. Then add a leaf bead. So it's just like you're doing it in the middle. And so I add a leaf bead, go through the top, add a leaf bead, go through the bottom, add a leaf bead, and come back down through the 2 there. So once you pull it taut, it will line up. And so we are just going to go around the circle of the 6 beads that you just added. So there's 3 brown leaf beads in between the 2 flowers. There you go. And so it's just kind of like zipping up your pattern. So you added 1 leaf bead, and then you went through the horizontal flower petal bead on the other side, added the next leaf bead, went through the top horizontal petal bead on this side, added the last one, and then went down through there. So that way, see how they set sideways and your leaves are horizontal. And so that way you just tighten it all up. And I'm using a size 10 needle here, so the eye is quite large. And my total thread sliding a little bit. I would recommend using the Toho 1G thread for this versus a fire line, especially if you're going to make a ring or a choker, because there's a little bit of stretch in there. And this way it will allow you to get a nice even tension, because there's no stretch in fire line. And so we just connected our ring together. What I usually do is I go around and do a zigzag thread path around the whole thing, at a right angle, following my thread path. So if the bead is horizontal leaf bead, I go through one of those, and then I go through both petal beads. And then on the other side, I will go through the other horizontal leaf bead, and then go the other direction through my 2 petal beads. And I will zigzag my way back and forth. So I'm going down one side of the bracelet this direction. So I'm going down the right side petal, and then as I go around and get there, then I do the reverse and go backwards. And so it will be tightened up one way, and then I will tighten up the other way. And then in the middle, sometimes this center of the petal bead will tend to pop out a little bit. And if that's happening, that means your tension is a little too tight. So what I always do is I pinch with my thumb and forefinger while I'm pulling my thread. That way that bead won't pop and the tension will remain around all the 6 beads. But you could, if you wanted to, go back up the petal bead in the middle and down the leaf bead in the middle, and then the leaf bead on the side, or the petal, depending on what you're in. And that way it just zigzags through those 2 and straightens them out. So if you wanted to go down a 3rd time, that way you could straighten the center bead when you re-strengthen it the 3rd time. There's no rhyme or reason to the absolute best way of reinforcing your jewelry. It's kind of a personal thing at how strong you think you need to have it. And if you're really hard on your jewelry, I recommend just going through it several times. Just keep strengthening it until it feels good to you. You might like it really stiff and sturdy. You might like it a little bit more flexible. That's also a personal preference to your style. The only thing I recommend is when you're wrapping it around your finger to connect it, straighten it out. Because look at what I just did. I twisted it when I did it, so it won't actually lay right. So I twisted it. So that's the only problem with the ring. So when you're connecting the ring, if you wrap it around your finger to sew it together, then you won't do that. But since I'm using a giant ring sample, those are the hazards of how it goes. But it's really easy to undo.
Rochelle,
Yeah.
Rochelle, Paulette Mazurek made a comment. I made a mistake when starting my 4th flower, so it zigzags and then continued. She says, I will try it again. And then will you post your variations that you were showing, please?
Absolutely. Well, what time is it? It's 3:16. We can just bead some more variations.
Ask and you shall receive.
Why not? We're still here. We got time. So heck, why not? So that's the fun part of it. Yeah, there's no mistakes in beading, honestly. There's just alterations to the pattern, right?
There's new designs is what there is.
Exactly, or like Cliff, it's a new stitch.
There you go.
And so, for example, if you want to make a cute little ring that has a flower and then has a couple stripes and then a flower and then a couple stripes, once again, we are going to, I think the orange beads are pretty easy to use. So in order to make a stripe, once again, we start with our main leaf. So you do a leaf bead and then a petal bead and a leaf bead, and then pass down through the second bead you got going there, and then you would do your leaf and then your petal and pull it taut, and you're going to pull it backwards. So once again, we have 2 orange beads going horizontal. I have 3 leaf beads with stacked vertical, and then I have 2 orange beads horizontal. So we want to do another stripe. So what do? We do a leaf bead, a petal bead, and a leaf bead. And so the first bead is attached to the row right next to you. The second bead is attached to the row after that. The third bead goes back to that row that's right in the middle. So it continues that same way. So you add your 3, and now you're going to add your 2. So the first bead will add to the row that's right here vertically. The second bead is adding to the row after it. So that's why you added the second bead is the orange, and I'm going to go through the orange bead. So it helps tell you which way you're going. So that way we can get our striped pattern going here. We've got 2 orange, and then we've got 3 green and 2 orange. So if you want to create just a solid blocking color again, remember, do all 3 beads, pass down through the bottom, 2 beads, and pass up through the second bead you added, because it always pokes out. So we're going to continue and just go solid for a minute so that you can see what happens. So you're always going to add 3 beads and then 2 beads and 3 beads and then 2 beads. So if you add them all the same color, then you have a nice color blocking section. So that way we can have, we call it a palette cleanser pretty much in beading, so that you can have a space to create a dot. So at least have 2 different leaf sections in order to have a palette cleanser. So then now we're going to create our new flower. So we'll go back again to the white flower petal. So 2 flower petal beads and 1 flower center. So this is a multicolored flower. That looks funny. Oh my gosh. So if it looks funny, just pull off your beads and put it back. Oh my gosh. There's no judgment in beading, right? The variations are just completely up to you. But if you create first your palette cleanser, these 2 beads you've got on your end, that is your current flower you're working on. So always remember that those 2 beads, those are the first 2 beads in your next flower. So you want the flower center to be the 5th bead, right? So you pick up 2 more, and then there's your center. That's your 5th bead. And then there's always 6 beads in your flower. So we pick up 2 more flower petals. And so now you have your little space, and then you have a nice little flower. And then now we want to go back to our space so that you give dimension in your pattern. So once you've got that, you want to go back to your palette cleanser to give, which is all 1 color. So add 3 of the same color and 2 of the same color. So it's not that hard. So that way now we've got 1. So you're counting the leaf beads that stick out, remember? So we've got 2 leaves in orange here. We need to then create another one over here to then create our pattern. And just pull it taut. If you can't figure out where you're at, just pull those little last beads off and situate them. That way you can tell better where you are. And so now we have 2 different spacers on each side of our brand new center. That center is that like bright metallic bead. So since we've got stripes here, then we want to continue our pattern back to stripes. So how do we go back to our leaf again? Leaf, flower, leaf. That's it. And then leaf, flower, pass through the flower petal, and now you have your stripe again. So then you can create your patterns by doing them in repetition and then reversing that to create the little pattern. To put on an end clasp, let's see if we have another one here. I also have these fun little, just a normal spring ring, but it has a infinity jump ring on the end. So it's 2 solid rings. So one ring can be beaded into your project and the other ring can be captured. And so what I do right on the very end is to put on the clasp. I'm just going to circle the end to get my tension back, and then come out between the 2 petal beads. And then I'm going to go through my infinity jump ring, and then I'm just going to go back around, and that way my jump ring sits right in between those 2 beads. It sits just a little off that first thread, but that's okay because we just want to have the tension, and the thread, you know, is, you can really barely see that. So if you want to straighten, remember this leaf at the end, I went through the leaf, I went through the infinity jump ring and the bead next to it. And then I went down through the leaf again. And then I'm going back up through the leaf. So I just did a zigzag in order to straighten it out and then recapture my infinity jump ring a little bit different way, and then go around it again. And then lock them into place one more time and go through the beads and the jump ring. So that way, and you would do the same thing if you were working with a beadable clasp, but that way you have a solid ring that you can bead onto and a solid ring that captures your clasp. And so then I would just go back down, like we said, through the 2 different, and zigzag your way all the way around down here. And I wrapped it around my finger when I passed back through it once again and flattened the top so that it didn't, the center little guy didn't poke out. So the other variations are pretty much all in your mind. What kind of imagination do you have with, I mean, it's a linear pattern or a circular pattern is basically all it is. But if you want to just intermix matte beads and shiny beads, you can get some really nice texture. So I did make a real neutral choker and then just used a beadable clasp in it, and it's just alternating perma-finish, shiny, and matte. And I did it in a striped pattern, but I also did the center of every flower in the same metallic. So it looks very neutral. So when your flower center is the same as your stripe, then you get kind of an optical illusion. And I was beading in the dark, so I have 2 different color. I have a gold and a champagne metallic bead here. I didn't realize there were 2 different colors. So that's the other way of getting a little variation, is just bead in very low lighting.
Everybody loves those professional tips and tricks. Thank you. Because we've all done them and went, oh, well, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it really is. And but the stitch is so strong and sturdy that and the beads lay so nice and unique when you do it this way in the zigzag stitch. and you never lose track of which bead you're going in and out of, but it also just makes it nice and easy to use. So I like the stripes. It kind of makes it a lot more geometric when you're doing something, you know, for,
Well, and it's really interesting how you've used some of the symbol elements too. And I
well,
see those more and more being used, and they are just so useful and
really are.
creative, you know?
They- Well, and I'm so shocked that they didn't come out with them before now. I mean, we've always had different kind of connectors and things, but
Yeah.
they've never thought about how you're working with them with the beads. And so having them in the right dimensions, because in this striped pattern, I really like the squared off one. And then I tried the curved one here, and I
Mhm.
only liked it when I had more of a floral design on it, which is just an optical illusion, clearly. You know, so
Right. And personal taste, you know.
right, but with the stripes, I liked the more linear style with the square one, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of crazy. And then I did use these little magnets. So these are the symbols. They actually work well with the gem duo. They call them the gem duo clasp
Mhm.
because they're the exact dimension as a gem duo. And then they have the beadable part in there and the locker device. So I really like those a lot for the chokers. And you know, and then of course, like I said, the infinity clasp and jump rings that work with some of the I mean, this is just a basic giant spring ring so that I can work with it with my old hands. Because yeah, this is the old fashioned one where it's the slide tube and the loops that way. And so these have been around for a while, but the new 3-to-1 connector, 2-to-1 connector, 4-to-1 connector then leaves you more options. So then you can, you know, add a chain and
Well, it's just nice to have some more choices.
it really is. And it gives just a little different look to your thing. And since they have every style now and they're working the same size as your beads. So they do
Yeah.
have larger ones. I was going to use, but my beads aren't silver. This one here is for a super duo or a size 8. So the dimension in between the two holes here is a size 8. So it's just absolutely perfectly spaced for that, you know. And then there's the different wider ones. These are all magnetic clasps and they all bead in. So depending on your width, it's I really love them, and they're just, yeah, they come in, and these are rhodium plated, otherwise they're rose gold plated, 24 karat gold plated. The antique brass one is the only base metal one, but they wear really well. And so, but yeah, I highly recommend just having some fun with your daisies and creating, you know, like I said, the color choices is going to determine the look, and then how you arrange those colors can just change your pattern dramatically. So it's up
Mhm.
to your imagination, really, how it goes. You know, and so I just think, yeah, see, I just did a little sparkle. I did alternating here so that the center of my flower and one is green and then the next one is a metallic galvanized. So it just, and I use the leaf color in the
Right.
one. It's
And
not,
it cuts off the other colors.
it does. It
Yeah,
really
you've got
balances.
to have some kind of contrast in there.
Right.
And that makes you notice all the beads.
Correct. And so, yeah, a little bit of sparkle goes a long way, because the rest are all matte beads. These are the semi-glazed mattes, and
Mhm.
just, yeah, so 12 galvanized beads really sparkle up a project.
And it's amazing. It doesn't take much, does it?
No, and these are size 8s. So it works up really fast. I made this necklace in like an hour, pretty much, and in the size 8s, because they do work up pretty fast. It's the reinforcing and the reinforcing that takes longer. So that's why I usually bead off of my bobbin, and or leave yourself a 2-foot tail on the other side of your stopper bead, so that you will be able to use that tail to put your clasp on the other end, if you want to, and to reinforce. And then that 6 foot of thread should make you an entire bracelet. If you do need to add thread, this is a one-way stitch. There's just a slight angle to the tilt, see, of those leaves. And so if you want to keep going, you realize that it's not long enough and you want to take off your stopper bead and continue the bracelet, then the only recommendation is to flip your beadwork the correct direction, because normally this tail was in the bottom left-hand corner. So now if you flip it and it's in the top right-hand corner, you'll be going the right direction and it'll all look the same.
All right, a tip and trick.
There you go. So that's what I'm leaving with you. If you have any other questions,
Let's see if anybody's got any more on chat. No? Lynn Tim had to sign off, but she says, thank you, great presentations. We also looked at Paulette's and you showed her the variations. Let's see, Tia Wilkie had to sign off. And everybody is, thank you, thank you, thank you. And they very much enjoyed everything. So that's great.
okay. Well, we will be back here again for live beading basics on Saturday, April 17th. And we are going to have some really fun things. We'll have Hannah Rosner teaching us fast peyote. So if anybody gets bored with peyote because it's one bead at a time, she's got her tips and tricks of how to basically do it a whole lot faster. And then we are going to be having Julie Burcham is going to be teaching. It's if you got the newsletters coming out, but it's a really cute, it's how to bead around a hoop, and she's doing a combination of brick stitch and peyote stitch to create a fun little daisy pattern wrapping around your hoops. So it's basically teaching you how to create patterns around objects, whether it's a, you know, a round hoop or an oval or a square or whatever. But it's the round is the easiest because of the curvature is nicer than corners. But so then we'll have, let's see, who else do we have?
And then, well, we got to make the announcement about our regular meeting coming up on the 5th of April.
Right. And we introduced Madison at the beginning of the show. And if you missed the beginning or you don't remember, Madison Holler will be April 5th at our Monday night, and that's the private meeting. And so that will be through Zoom and the Upper Midwest Society group private page. And so you do have to be a member to come to the Monday meeting. So if you want to join the group, just go follow the links to our umbs.org website, and we'll send you a PayPal payment request for the payment to join our monthly activities. Our Saturday beading basics are free. But if anybody wants to join to be a teacher, it's open to all Bead Society members to help me teach. So if you want to share something, we would love to have you be a guest teacher.
just message us what you would like to do and when you want to do it. And you can do it from home. We'll Zoom to you, or you could join me here at the Bobby Bead Studio. And so we're doing it the middle of every month. We've got it for May as well. And we'll have our May monthly meeting as our special guest, Tia Pearson. She's one of our very own here in Minneapolis, doing a multimedia, mixed media. She does India ink. She does all kinds of wonderful things mixed with recycling, upscaling things. And so she'll be teaching May 15th here on our Beading Basic Saturday. So Tia will give you a little teaser that Saturday after the May meeting as well. So we have a great spring lineup. Today is the first day of spring, so we hope you join us all spring long and keep on beading. So if you have any questions or didn't get the patterns, you can message us. We'll send you the patterns again as well too.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for all your work, Rochelle.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining us, and we can't wait to see you. We look forward on Monday night, April 5th, to all the members.
Okay, great. Thanks. See you later.
Bye, guys.